We'll have a read of this New York Times piece, and the heading is US study on puberty blockers goes unpublished because of politics, doctor says. So we'll read it. The leader of the long-running study said that the drugs did not improve mental health in children with gender distress, and that the finding might be weaponized by opponents of the care. So, an influential doctor and advocate of adolescent gender treatment said that she had not published a long-awaited study of puberty-blocking drugs because of the charged American political environment. So, this woman has withheld facts because of politics. So, this is the problem that we're in this age, is that we're spellbound into thinking that the top priorities in life are the economy and the state. So anything that could negatively impact on the economy or on the state, we view as entirely reprehensible, and therefore it should be silenced. And nobody needs to hear it because it could be bad for the common good or a national state of emergency kind of thing, for the state of national security. We won't say this. Like, the protection is around the system that we're ensnared in. So anything that challenges that is deemed to be anathema, and it is a heresy, and the books will be burnt, and people will be politically crucified, right? Or professionally crucified even. But what we should be doing is elevating truth above all else. Because if you're oriented towards truth, the sufficient state will flow from that, because everyone is oriented towards what's good and right and true in the world. Even if it stings at times to hear the truth, you still elevate truth above all else, because everything falls into place underneath the umbrella of truth. But when you elevate the safety of the system of politics and banking system and the economy system that we're in above all else, above the wellness of children even in this case, well, you're not really onto a winner there, right? So we'll continue. The doctor, Joanna Olson Kennedy, began the study in 2015 as part of a broader multi-million-dollar federal project on transgender youth. So big money being pumped into this stuff to study it. It's not to review case loads, or previous case histories. It's to study it. So they're bringing in children to experiment on in this study by giving them hormone blockers, or puberty blockers as they're called, right? Or hormone enhancers even, whatever the case is. And the governments are sponsoring this, so make it out what you want. She and colleagues recruited 95 children from across the country and gave them puberty blockers, which stave off the permanent physical changes, like breasts or a deepening voice, that would, they say, exacerbate their gender distress, known as dysphoria. In the 9 years since the study was funded by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and as medical care for this small group of adolescents became a searing issue in American politics, Dr. Olson Kennedy's team has not published the data. Asked why, she said the findings might fuel the kind of political attacks that have led to bans on the youth gender treatments in more than 20 states, one of which will soon be considered by the Supreme Court. So her issue is that if she releases the data, because she knows what it is, if she releases the findings, I suppose, of this research, then it must be bad to the position that she wants to see in society. Because she is saying that if she releases what she's after finding out from this experiment, then people might look negatively on the idea of gender swapping or gender changing, right? Or swapping your gender identity, even like down to the biological level, which is what she's talking about here, and what she seems to be advocating for, okay? So she obviously knows that the facts of the findings, or whatever the case is, are detrimental to the philosophy that she has, and people will probably react correctly so, I would imagine, if the findings are bad or negative. They would say, well, hang on, like, we shouldn't be doing this if kids are being hurt in some way. Do you know what I mean? But she doesn't want people to have that reaction, so she's she's delaying the release of the findings, right? So this is her quote: "I do not want our work to be weaponized," she said. "It has to be exactly on point, clear and concise, and that takes time." Fair enough. But 9 years ago, Just release what you have so far, and you can fine tune it then as it continues on. Because the study never really stops when you're dealing with people. So you have 9 years, and however many years these kids have been put on these things. So you maybe had 4 or 5 years, if not more, of observing these children and the changes in them as they grow and develop after receiving this experiment treatment, right? But that continues on. Like, so you can take the findings that you have as of today and then continue on to study anyway. Like, this nonsense of it has to be exactly on point, clear and concise, and that takes time. To a degree, it's true, but it's also a shield over the obvious thing, which is that you can give us the findings now as you have them, and you can continue on your study. And we will respect the fact that you might come back and say, look, things have changed since the last review of the findings, and here's what we found now. Grand, that's what should be done. You can't just sit on information when that information could help to make younger people's lives better or to stop them from engaging in something that it looks like this person knows is going to be harmful to them. It's crazy. And this is the idea of elevating the protection of a philosophy or an ideology, especially when it's so tied into the economy and the system, the state system, right? It's so corrupted, like, that you sacrifice the good of children for the sake of your own worldview. Like, that's psychosis. That is psychotic. That is psychopathic. 100% psychopathic. You know, it's like she can do what she wants with children because she has a vision. Like, that's terrifying. That is terrifying. And if the results of what she's doing with children would lead people to view her philosophy as negative or evil or wrong, then she'll withhold that information. Like, that is absolutely terrifying. And it should come as no surprise to people when you read into how these studies are done and how they are manipulated and how they're funded by the very companies who are trying to get a drug approved. They can fund their own studies, which means they also can determine how long the study is going on for, and they can pull that study whenever they want. And they're under no legal obligation to release negative outcomes, which is crazy. So, like, this woman technically, I would imagine, does not have to release her findings. There might be massive pressure put onto her to do so, and she might fold to that. But legally, as far as my last reading of it, these big companies and stuff are not legally obligated to release their findings, their negative findings, or any of them for that matter, right? I think there might have been some changes along the way, but as of a good few years ago now, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I read up that that was the way it was, you know. So again, look, crazy stuff. So this woman is not elevating truth above all else. She's elevating her ideology above the well-being, the safety of children. And that's not the way to go, okay? That needs to shift. And how that shift is going to be like the death of 1,000 cuts, like, because it's people individually tuning into things and recognizing things and feeling it for what it is and not being deceived into reinterpreting something that they sense to be a certain way, okay? So people, they elevate the social consensus above their own instinctual reaction to things. And that is also like a subversion. You know, it's the same thing. The whole way up the line, you see the same thing.